Hey Run Junkies, with Walt Disney World Marathon weekend just over the horizon and with most of us propping our feet up waiting for the party to start, we could really start to obsess about a lot of things. So let's just sit down and do that together, shall we? So how about today we talk about your race day plan of attack. For the most part, you can use any of these tips as part of your planning for any distance or challenge. But here's the thing, there are a lot of factors that go into deciding how to make that race plan. For example, are you going to stop for characters? How many and which ones? Rides. How many and which ones? What is your corral placement? How much time do you have from the time you start to the time the balloon ladies start? What is that buffer? How many races are you running? More races means you need to manage the time on your feet and your paces throughout the weekend. Weather is a huge factor, and if it gets hotter, it will affect your paces on race day. So let's just talk about what is your goal. What is most important for you on race day for Walt Disney World Marathon weekend? Do you want to PR? Do you want to stop for characters? Do you want to just finish without getting swept? All of these goals require special planning, especially if you start adding up the mileage across several race distances. So here are my best tips on planning your Walt Disney World Marathon weekend races. My first tip is to not jump out too fast in the first part of any of these races, no matter what the distance is and how many of these races you're doing. Especially in the longer races, take the first few miles at a slower average pace than you're used to so you can save your legs for the second half. I personally love it when I can negative split and when I have a little bit left in the tank so I can give that final kick in the last mile or two. Blowing your legs out in the first half of the race will make the second half of the race really hard. My next tip is to prioritize your characters. Make a list. Who is on a short list of characters you absolutely positively have to stop for, and then figure out how much time you're going to have to do that. Character lines can be several minutes long, even though they try to push people through fairly quickly. My personal philosophy, and it's not necessarily true for everyone, I plan one character stop per corral that I have between me and the balloon ladies. And that is until and unless I can gain a time advantage that allows for more. If rides are on your must-do list for Walt Disney World Marathon, you have to manage that very carefully because the parks do not open until 9 a.m., which means that by the time you get through Magic Kingdom, it still won't be open. So your first park will be Animal Kingdom. The most popular ride on the marathon course is Expedition Everest, which is at about the half marathon mark. But Animal Kingdom opens at 9 a.m. So if you get to that mile 13 mark before 9 o'clock, you either are standing around waiting for them to open that ride, or you just have to keep on running and you'll miss it. But at 9 o'clock, you can jump in that single rider line and take a short but thrilling break from the running. Also, please note that that ride is over 2.5 minutes long in duration, and that's just the ride itself. That does not count getting onto and off the ride back onto the race course. Now that may not seem like much, but if you are averaging a 13-minute mile pace, all of a sudden that mile is going to be 16 minutes long. If you really want to ride Everest, you might want to do a little runner's math to figure out what your average pace in that first half marathon needs to be in order for you to get to Animal Kingdom at 9 a.m. or later based on your corral start time. Another great tip I've seen is to track the balloon ladies via runner tracking. They've usually been really good about this in years past, and they have shared their bib numbers with their Facebook groups. So I haven't yet seen those, but when I do see it come up, I will leave their bib numbers in the description below, and also head over to my Grace and Pretzels Facebook page where I will have that up when I get that information. You can receive text alerts which will tell you where they are on course, which also means if you do a little bit of thinking, you can figure out how far behind you they are, so you can decide whether or not you want to make a particular stop. The next tip is for those of us who like to take photos and video along the course. You might want to make a photo plan. It's amazing how quickly the time goes by when you're stopping to take pictures of every mile marker or the characters, or even just slowing down to talk to a camera on video. So if you do have some photo and video goals, have a plan ahead of time so you're not overdoing it and falling behind on pace. Be efficient in how you're doing that. So if you're taking a picture at every mile marker, take a quick snap and move on. And if characters are your thing, you might want to add that time into your average pace. Every picture and every video may slow you down in your average pace, so make sure you are taking that into consideration when navigating the course. My next tip is for those of you who use the auto pause feature on your device, which means that when you stop, say at a stoplight as you're running during your training runs, your watch stops as well, and then you begin running again, your watch automatically starts. I recommend you turn that feature off because that's going to give you a more accurate picture of your whole race time, the clock time, as opposed to just your run time. That way your pace will reflect your stop time as well, and you'll have a more accurate picture of what your time is versus the clock time and where the balloon ladies are. Look at each distance and then chunk it up. So for example, think of your half marathon as a 5-miler, a 5-miler, and a 5K. Or take that half marathon, for example, and chunk it up your own way. For example, from the start to Magic Kingdom, then a chunk in Magic Kingdom. Then the next chunk is out of Magic Kingdom to the turn before the last chunk to get you into and out of Epcot to the finish. And for the full marathon, think of it like this. It's 2 10-milers and a 10K, or however you need to break that distance up, that 26.2 miles up, to make it feel less daunting. This is a great mental game to play. If you are running the Goofy Challenge, I would recommend taking the half marathon on Saturday a little slower than you're used to. Slow that average pace to save your legs for the full. Like I said, chunk it up and think of the Goofy Challenge as 3 half marathons. If you are uncertain as to how to pace yourself for the half, I recommend going in and looking at your average training pace for your long runs over the last few weeks. And then add a full minute to that average mile pace if you can. Walk more than you're used to. Take it much slower. And then after the half marathon, be sure you are resting, hydrating, and eating properly to prepare yourself for the full marathon. Rest your legs and foam roll to prepare yourself for that 26.2 miles the next day. And like I said earlier, think about the full marathon as some kind of negative split. Start the first half a little bit slower than you normally would so you can save your legs for the last half of that race. Now, tips for you dopies. Remember that even an Olympian like Jeff Galloway just wants you to run these races, finish in the upright position, and hopefully have a smile on your face at the end. So just like the Goofy runners, we want to save our legs for the full marathon as best as we can. Now, since the 5K isn't even timed, I would think of it like a shakeout run. Really slow paces, or even walk the 5K. It's not timed. As long as you are keeping up with that 16-minute per mile pace, you'll cross the finish line just fine. And then for the 10K, you might go a little bit faster, but still try not to burn out your legs. And then for the half, slow it back down a little bit, stop for some characters, take it easy in that first half of the half marathon, and then you might kick it up a notch for the second half. Make a few stops, but think of the half marathon as just another training run. You want to take it easy. We don't want to race the half marathon and blow ourselves out for the full. Then for the full, you should have plenty of gas in the tank to get your legs through 26.2 miles. But all of this hinges on my last tip, and that is to recover properly in between races. Your races, no matter how many miles you're running, no matter how many days you're running, will be no fun if you shred your legs in the parks before you even get to the start line. Check out this video right here for my tips on how to plan that park time in between your races. Get to bed early, set multiple alarms, eat and hydrate properly. But those are my tips for planning your Walt Disney World Marathon weekend races. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. If you would like to see my personal Dopey Challenge plan of attack, please check out my website at gofindyourawesome.com. I've left a link to that in the description below. My question for you today is this: do you have a plan for Walt Disney World Marathon weekend? And if so, what does that look like? Please leave thoughts, questions, comments, and suggestions in the comment section down below. And as always, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. That is it for me today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Get out there, go find your awesome. We'll see you next time. And until then, happy running.